Hey everybody, this is my 125 gallon native tank, and tonight we're going to do a before and after video. We're going to look at the lighting on this tank, and right now I've got two LED spotlights on either end of the tank. The one on the right hand side is a little more difficult to sort of see how it's a spotlight. You can see how it's shining real bright on that one spot on the rock, and then one spot on the wood right below it, but you don't get the real feeling of what a beam of light it is. The left side of the tank, however, gives you a very, very clear indication of what I'm talking about. I inadvertently bought spotlights when I thought I was buying floodlights, and these have a 25-degree beam on them, which is a very, very narrow spot, and I just don't like the way it looks. So I ordered some new floods. They're basically the same lights. They're going to be the 5000K LEDs, and I'm hoping that they're going to give us a little more diffused lighting, and we're going to get to see a little bit less of a spot beam in there and a little more just bright lighting on either end of the tank. I'm probably also going to remove a big bunch of that floating water sprite in there just to thin that out a little bit, and that'll brighten the tank up a little bit. Not going to do a water change tonight, but we are going to have a quick look at your before, and there's your after. So I don't know if I'm 100% thrilled with this. If you can't tell, I moved the shop light from the center of the tank off to the right, and then I put both LEDs on the left, and you can see there's still pretty significantly beams of light shining down into the tank. You can see that the angle spreads a little as it goes down, but it's still pretty narrow beams of light, especially up near the top. So I don't have a problem with that so much. I just didn't like the one at either end effect on the tank. It just made it look too formal and unnatural. This at least gives it the effect of some beams of light making their way through the trees. I removed a bunch of that water sprite in there. You can see a lot of it still swirling and floating around the tank. It was just countless little tiny bits of chewed up leaf and countless little baby plants and just handfuls of it came out of the tank. And of course it's still all swirling around in there, and the fish think it's feeding time and everything else. So I'll let you have a look at it with the way it is now for a few minutes, and we'll go ahead and do a feeding on the tank, at least partial feeding. We'll throw some flake food here in the center, and you get to see a veritable feeding frenzy once they realize what's going on. With all of the confusion in the tank, with all of the debris and everything floating around, it might take them a moment, but I don't think it'll take them too long to realize that food's in the tank. This might actually be good. It might make the feeding last a little longer than normal. It's usually an explosion at the surface for about 30 seconds and it's over. This might actually give the food time to make its way around the tank a little bit. So I went pretty light on the feeding just because they've been in there munching and eating on all of the vegetation that's been floating around. And I did see one of the crayfish in the bottom earlier today sticking its head out of the cave. I shot a video not long ago, and I pointed out an area that to me looked as though it was a crayfish house. You could just kind of tell by the way the gravel had been moved out. And sure enough, that's where I saw a crayfish sticking its claws out this morning. So we've definitely got one of them in there that's still alive and well, and I can actually see one through the rocks in the very center of the tank towards the back there. It just made its way past, so there's a couple of them in there. Let me grab a few algae wafers and throw them in the tank. Maybe we'll actually get to see some crayfish activity as well. These are high-carry algae wafers. I'm just breaking them up so they're in smaller bits and pieces rather than whole algae wafers. But it is simply high-carry algae wafers. I will also say, I know you all can't see it, but I'm looking in my red-clawed crab tank, and I threw a bunch of water sprite in there. and I can see 3 red-clawed crabs right now. So we actually do still have at least 3 of them alive, and there's one in there that could be a 4th one, but it's kind of down in the shadows, so I'm not entirely sure what's going on with that. So hopefully one of these days soon I'll get in there and I'll do a little bit of reworking with that tank, and maybe we'll get it somewhere where it's a little easier to see, a little more visible, and we'll get to enjoy that one a little more. So that's probably going to be about it for the feeding. They're going to probably dart and dash around here and there a little bit for the rest of the evening while we've got all of that debris floating around in the tank. But the weather is supposed to break tomorrow. We've had a couple of rainy days, and that means I'll be able to get back outdoors, and we will get down to the stream and maybe throw the minnow trap out, or maybe we'll just take the dip net and we'll go down by hand and try to catch some. At this point, all I really want to catch is more of those rosy side dace, and then of course I still want to build up my little crayfish population I got going on in there, so we can get to see some good crayfish drama and activity in the very near future. But those rosy side dace, I really would like to get a school of them. They're absolutely beautiful, especially when you get a group of them together and they really start to color up. My creek chubs in there are just getting really big, and the one in there is just huge. Again, I had no idea creek chubs got as big as they do, so it should be interesting to see how big they really finally get in the long run. And other than that, I can't really think a whole lot to talk about with this tank. So I will say thanks for watching. Make sure you're subscribed, and then that way you won't miss any of the stuff I was just talking about or anything else I got coming up. And then of course don't forget, this one is my 125-gallon native tank. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you like the new look, because I think this is the way it's going to wind up staying. So I'll see you on the next one.